You know, man has an amazing characteristic about him. He has a desire to know how the world works, why it exists. Why is there hardship in the world? Why do some people have a lot? Or why do some people have a little bit? These are questions that man has thought about since the beginning. And the way that he's dealt with these things has created stories, has created ideas. And we'll just call it, in the scientific means, we'll call it hypotheses about the way the world works. And I think it's one of the most exciting characteristics and most interesting characteristics of man is that exploration of why things are. And that's why I have a really hard time when I see in this current day where there are people truly, genuinely trying to find out about the way the world works, and then people that are trying to brainwash others into ideas that hold no merit, no value, and are completely just made up. And one of those groups is a group known as Desteni, D-E-S-T-E-N-I. And if you go to their website, I'll give you a link to it. You can read their frequently asked questions sections and find out about this complete and utter brainwashing nonsense. And before you say, well, wait a minute, they're not trying to brainwash anyone. In their very writings, they're quite clear that they are trying to change the way that you think. And not just change it a little bit, they're trying to completely erase who you are. So let's just take a little dive into that and just kind of see one of their keys, the process of self. If you go into their section of process of self, you're going to find out that the key to finding yourself is to stop. Stop every and all participation in the mind of oneself. Completely stop your mind. Stop being who you are and become, I don't know, whatever it is that you stop yourself. You completely wipe away who you are. That's who they want you to be. And that is mind washing. That is brainwashing yourself into not being who you are, but to being something I don't know what else is. But let's just take a look at Desteni. Their basic, all of their stuff is just utter nonsense. But let's just take a look at it. Basically, they will have you work through all of these points of nonsense to come to conclusions of nonsense. That's pretty much what Desteni is. They have everything based on complete logic and no facts. Zero facts. If you just take some logic like, okay, if you wake up in the morning and the sun is up, then you should walk out in the street. And that's the only thing you should do. The sun's up, you walk out in the street. And that's the only logic that you could have if the sun is up. You don't want to go inside because that's not right. The logic is that you walk outside when the sun is up. You just take some BS logic, put it together, and that's not just what you should do. That's how you should live your life. It's just complete garbage. So one of their let's just take them point by point here. One of their things is oneness and equality. Here's one of their statements. See, it is the only map. Oneness and equality is the only map in existence that also exists beyond existence. Okay, well, that is utter nonsense. No one knows of anything beyond existence. No one has any proof of anything beyond existence. So the very tenet, the very beginning thought that they have, that one and equality is the only map. How do we know? Maybe there's 10 maps. Maybe oneness and partial equality is another map. And maybe there's a map that says oneness without equality is the map. But we have no proof of that, so we can't do anything with that. The process of self, of course, I already talked about that. The process of self is to stop. Stop every and all participation in the mind of one's self. Complete stop all thought. Yeah, that's really finding yourself. Okay, here we go. Self-honesty. Imagine their very beginning on self-honesty is imagine you suddenly have a portal to heaven. Well, there is no proof of any portals to heaven. So how can that be in the least bit of the beginning of self-honesty? Absolutely no proof of this, and that's their beginning thought on the process of self-honesty. Self-forgiveness. One of their real whole basis of what forgiveness is it allows you to break through your levels of consciousness. You get a break through the ego. You get a break through the subconscious mind. You get a breakthrough into a part of the mind that is complete, we're not in touch with, and that's what forgiveness allows you to do. Well, you know what? There's absolutely no proof that any of that actually occurs. When you are participating in forgiveness, you're using the ego to forgive yourself that you've done something. Your ego has done something that it's not happy with, and so you're participating not necessarily in any other part of your mind, but in the highest level. There is no proof that you go anywhere outside of that when you forgive yourself. So more rubbish, that somehow forgiveness allows you to transfer into these different parts of your mind. Then, here's another really awesome one. What will change the world for all? This is their ideas of what will change the world. When a principle is a guideline, personality and ego become irrelevant. If the principles applied, that will change the world. That is actually true. That if you participate, if you completely eliminate your personality, eliminate your ego, and live purely on principle, you can change the world. You can have things like a wonderful, let's think of some different times that's happened. Mini wars. If you give up yourself and live for the state and go and kill your neighbor, hey, you're living by the principle that your country is better than others. You can have a wonderful war if you want to do that. You can also completely commit suicide by just a principle. Give up yourself completely and live by the idea that, hey, I'm not important. My death makes the world better. There's another wonderful principle. There's all kinds of wonderful principles you can come up with that have no bearing on being of any value to anyone. And you can live by those principles and give up yourself. So this what will change the world for all is a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of junk. They give you false principles that are completely incapable. And let's just take one of their really key ideas of how to change the world. The equal money system. If you just take money, give it to everybody equally, it's going to solve the problem. Well, that would work if you didn't have any understanding about what money is about. The purpose of money is to manage scarcity. There's a reason why you have money. It allows you to be able to choose who is going to be able to use the scarce resources. And you don't need money if there is no scarcity. So there you go. Eliminate scarcity, and guess what? You don't need money. You can completely eliminate it. You don't even need to give it equally to people. You can just get rid of it. But the problem is that scarcity exists in the real world. It will always exist. And it's not just a matter of we don't have enough food, we don't have enough whatever. We don't have enough time. You have to give up something to do something else. That scarcity will always exist. And that is the reality of life. Life is scarcity. You always have a scarcity of time before you die. So, destiny is utopian. It is a utopian fantasy based on pure, bogus logic. Just made up stuff. That there's portals into heaven, all kinds of great stuff. Let's take a look at some other nonsense they have. They have a whole section on common sense. Well, you know, the reality is common sense There's nothing common about common sense. You have to develop this sense, and really the only value of common sense is if it has any verifiable value. If that common sense produces a result of what you want. And that's really what you want to base your life on, not on just random logic, but on the benefit that you have from that thing. Not based on utopian ideas, but on reality, the reality of scarcity. Some other things. They talk about all this energy. The reality, they talk about how energy transfers and so forth. Yes, energy does transfer. It transfers into mass, and you can take mass and you can transfer that mass into energy and so forth. But typically for a person, for them to transfer into pure energy, where they could actually transfer their whole being into energy, that would require their death. So the only way you could really truly achieve the transference of a person into some other plane would require their death. You can't transfer planes while you exist in this realm. They talk about how you have this multi-dimensional reality. The reality is that we have a one-dimensional reality because we exist within mass. We have a mass, the person that we are. And for us to leave this person, we would have to die. And we don't know what happens after death. There's no proof that anything happens other than that our energy transfers out of us. We cease to exist, and that energy goes on and becomes something else. We don't live in a multi-dimensional world. We live in a unidimensional world. We live in the world that is us. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to live in it? Let's talk about another thing that they have. They talk about the beginning of destiny, and it always starts off with the same nonsense that all this worthless nonsense starts in. It starts in religion. They started in some religion, and then they went on to some other form of that religion. And they talk about trances and so forth. Well, you know what I want to say about trances? Trances and all this other nonsense is insanity. And let me give you the definition of insanity. Insanity is a spectrum of behaviors categorized by certain abnormal mental or behavioral patterns. And I can't imagine any other better definition of what trances are than insanity. And just because people participate in insanity does not mean that it is reality. Just because someone is bipolar, just because someone participates in these crazy mental exhibitions of trances and pretending to be other people, or who knows what their mental mind is doing at the time, doesn't make it true, doesn't make it reality. Insanity does not create reality. Destiny is one thing: mind-washing, false logic, and it has no basis in reality. And if you participate in it, you're just participating in a waste of time. If you want to participate in something of value, participate in science. If you want to find out how the world was created, you want to find out why people do what they do, or what parts make up the human anatomy, what parts make up the actual mind, you need to participate in science, which bases their reality on a hypothesis followed by the verification of that hypothesis in reality, not just some random logic that some person comes up with and they verify it with their own insanity. So please stop being brainwashed by all of this nonsense and participate in reality.